So pretty. Hey guys, I'm out here at Bear Creek Forestry Campsite up the east side of Harrison Lake. This is where my first experience with Sasquatch began. But I was into it a long time ago. So my mom's brother, Bert Batt, my uncle, he gave me this book, Sasquatch, The Apes Among Us, by John Green, when I was about 7 or 8. He was a fireman and North Shore Search and Rescue, and an avid outdoors guy, so we did a lot of outdoor stuff with him. Unfortunately, he passed away at 42 from a massive heart attack. So I never really got to talk to him about the Sasquatch stuff, but I got the book from him and I read it cover to cover. And it's just full of stories and encounters going back years. So it must have been 1983 when I got this book and read about it. Anyways, so when I was about 15 or 16, my buddy had just got his license and we decided to skip school. We were really into playing war and the outdoors. So we came down here to Bear Creek. It was March. It was really cold. There was no one around. It was a Friday. And we came out here and we pitched a lean-to. We just put a tarp up. And behind us here, it runs into the lake, is Bear Creek. And our plan was we were going to hike up to the top of Bear Creek and camp overnight. So we started hiking up the river, and it was pretty dangerous. Like, I'll show you guys a video of it, but it was pretty steep, pretty crazy. There's no way anybody would be out here. The only guy out here was some guy a couple campsites down, living out of his van. He looked like Charles Manson. Back then I smoked, and I traded canned food for cigarettes. But that was it. And there's no way he was going up there. So we hiked up there. I guess it was probably around 4 o'clock, because I guess in March it gets dark around 4 o'clock. We went down to the river, or I went down. We were up on the bank, and we were going to cook some dinner, so we had a fire. I went down to the river to fill up a pot with some water to boil for Mr. Noodles. And there, on a rock, was a footprint. So it's as if somebody in bare feet stepped in the water and then stepped on the rock. There's no one up there. There was nobody up there. And this thing was huge. And back then we didn't have cell phones or cameras or like digital cameras, I don't think. Anyways, we had those disposable ones where you can take into Shoppers or something, they'll print out the film. So we took a picture and we were pretty freaked out. So we hightailed it back to camp that night. I don't think I slept a wink. And that night we heard screams from up in the mountains there. I can't even describe it. It's just like a banshee or a woman. Just, it was horrible. So my buddy, he had a computer. I think it was a Commodore 64. And email was really new, and he knew how to email. So we somehow got Jeff Meldrum. He's an anthropologist, I believe, in like Ohio State. But even back then, he had been researching Sasquatch, and he was interested in the footprints. So my buddy ended up emailing Jeff Meldrum a picture, and he did email back, and I think he said something like it was super interesting and wanted to know more about it or something. But anyway, so that was my first experience, and I gotta tell you, I think I was a believer even before that, just from reading John Green's book. I just don't see how all of these stories can't be fakes. So the next time something happened to me isn't far from here. It's at the beginning of the lake, down by Harrison City itself. There's a picnic area, and I think it must have been April, May. I was about 24. I took a girl and some beer to have a fire up by the lake. We all know what that's about. And it wasn't that late. It must have been 10 o'clock. We were sitting around the fire drinking some beer. And then all of a sudden, we heard this scream. And I don't just mean like someone like screaming. It was up in the mountains behind us, and you could like hear it echo, like bouncing off the mountain walls, the valleys as it came down to us at the lake. And it was terrifying. Again, it sounded like a woman, like a banshee, but you could almost feel it like in your chest. That's how powerful it was. But it couldn't have been human. I've heard bobcats, and this thing, it had so much power behind it. That's what got us. And anyways, we threw the rest of the beer in the bag, threw water on the fire, and we were gone. It was that terrifying. And we ran back to my truck. So that's my other experience. Then I've had other things happen because I'm a hunter out in the bush. You come across weird things that just don't seem right, or they seem out of place if you know what you're looking for. Or you hear weird noises, or else you just get this feeling where your hair goes back up on the back of your neck and you just get creeped out. I've had a couple of those too. So about 7 years ago, my buddy, the same guy that we came here to Bear Creek with when we were 15, 16, now a park ranger in the area. And I think it's about 6-7 years ago, got a call from the producers from the show Finding Bigfoot. I know it's kind of a cheesy show, but they were filming an episode, BC versus Washington, what's Squatch here, and they wanted to know some locations where they could film. So we passed along my information to them, and they got a hold of me, and I met up with them, and I got to tell them our story here, and we got invited out. If you're familiar with the show, you'll know how on each episode they meet with people in the local area, and they stand up and they tell their story, share their stories. So this took place at the Chehalis First Nations Reserve in their longhouse there. So we got to go there, and they came out in their traditional dress with their Sasquatch masks, and they actually have a dance they do for the Sasquatch. They came out and they did that. We got to see that. That was really cool. And then we got to hear stories from the area. And I heard one guy who was hiking up Pierce Lake. That's up Chilliwack Lake Road. I've done the hike. It's pretty remote. Came across some footprints in the snow. Another one was a truck driver. I think it might have been in Jasper. I don't know. But he said something was up on a ridge, threw a half-eaten deer carcass. It landed on the hood of his rig. Then there was another one. A lady said she was contacted by one. She was kind of like nuts. So, and then there was another one though. The guy stood up. You could tell he was visibly shaken still. He was crying when he started to tell the story. And he told everyone he had never shared the story with anyone. The only people that knew were his immediate family who were there. It took place at Hicks Lake, which isn't far from here. Passed it on the way in here. It's near, actually where I heard the scream on the lake when I was having the campfire. It's part of Sasquatch Provincial Park, which is closed this time of year. But he was camping there with his son and his wife, and there's a trail that goes around Hicks Lake. And they were riding their bikes, and him and his son noticed that the wife, the mom, wasn't with them. So they looked back, and they saw her. She was on her bike, looking up on the ridge beside the trail. So the husband calling at her, she wasn't moving. So we rode back there, and she was like, I guess she was in shock. She was just staring at the ridge. He looked up, and he saw an ape, and he said Bluff charged them and came halfway down the ridge, beating his chest, screaming. And he's crying while he's telling the story. I usually cry when I'm telling them too, but I tried to hold it back for the camera. Doing pretty good. And yeah, this thing Bluff charged them. They got on their bikes. They got the heck out of there. But yeah, he was visibly shaken when he was telling the story. So pretty interesting stuff. And I guess it was Cliff and Matt Moneymaker that were there. And I guess they ended up going up, I think it was near, what is it, Bay 22 or anyways, they went up 20 or 30 kilometers up the thing to do a night investigation, and I guess they got some vocals or something, but interesting anyway. So about 4 years ago, I took a trip down to Arizona and back on my Harley. I wanted to go check out a couple things off my bucket list, like Route 66, the Grand Canyon. I wanted to go through Utah. I wanted to see parts of Arizona, Monument Valley. Got to ride through that. Can't even describe it. It was amazing. I'll be back again. So anyways, I went through Washington and I'm going through Oregon. And just in the middle of buttfuck nowhere, somewhere in Oregon, and all of a sudden my radio's going wonky on my Harley. So I pulled over into this little town in the middle of nowhere to try and fix my radio. Pulled into town, pulled over on the side street, and I love America. I love like small town America. There's this little, sorry, Rip's just digging a hole behind you. What are you doing, Rip? Anyway, pulled over, there's this nice little park right across the street with a bunch of tents up. So I decided to walk over and check it out. Walked over, I couldn't believe it. I walked over to the first tent. There's this guy selling t-shirts with Bigfoot, Sasquatch all over it. I look to my right, and there's Jeff Meldrum. He's got a whole table of footprint casts laid out. I couldn't believe it. So I talked to him, and yeah, it was really interesting. I had wandered into a Bigfoot convention in some little town in Oregon on my road trip. So I continued on. Went through Utah, amazing. Down into Route 66, through Arizona, then up to Vegas. From Vegas, I actually stayed a couple days and rented a vehicle, and I drove out to Area 51 and stayed the night out at Black Mailbox. That was cool. We saw something, met a guy that was showing me some of his UFO videos. He was out there too. Said Bob Lazar would often come out there on a Wednesday. I guess it's been years since Bob Lazar would go out there, but that was an experience. After Vegas, drove up to Reno, Nevada, spent the night there, and then I was supposed to go down to San Francisco on the coast, up to Eureka. So somehow, and I was following my GPS on my bike, and somehow it was not on my bike, it was not part of my bike, but it was a separate unit I had attached to my bike, and somehow it decided to take me a scenic route. And I didn't check the route or anything, I just put in where I wanted to go, which was Eureka, and followed it, because all the major highways went down to San Francisco. So I'm going along, I come through this beautiful valley. Actually looked a lot like Fraser Valley, like through the flats there. But I'm coming through this valley, grapes, and the road is, oh actually, okay, let's step back. I went up through, there's two volcanoes, I think it was Mount Shasta, and there's another one up there. So I went by them, I'm coming down into this valley, just beautiful country, beautiful. And it's no longer a highway, now I'm on like a single road, winding road, back road, paved still. I'm coming into this little town. So I come into this little valley, and all of a sudden, my GPS is still saying, I looked at the GPS, it still says like 4 hours to Eureka. So I pulled into a gas station, I went inside, I was like, you know, I think I'm lost, where am I? And the lady's like, oh hun, you're a long way from San Francisco, you're like 6 hours, you gotta go all the way back here and down here. So I was like, oh shit, because it's starting to get dark, right? And I really don't know where I am. I'm in the middle of California, lost. So I decided to keep following my GPS, filled up with gas. My GPS takes me up this mountain. Now the road is, it's like a single lane road. So I'm going, I'll throw in a couple, I took some video on my cell phone and some pictures. I'll cut those in while I'm editing. It won't be as good quality, but it'll give you an idea where I was. So I'm going up this windy road, up this mountain. I get to the top. So I'm lost right now. My GPS is taking me over some fucked up back road to try and get to the coast. And there's a pretty cool view up here, but that's about it. There's no gas station for like 100 kilometers. So let's hope I make it to the coast. It's a cool view. I'm looking down towards the coast, and all I see is mountain range after mountain range after mountain range. So I'm kind of at the position now where it's like, okay, I gotta dedicate myself to go forward, or I gotta turn back, get gas, and get to San Francisco. It'll probably be like an 8-hour drive or something. Hey buddy, you having fun? So anyways, I'm talking to the people right now, bud. Anyways, I decided just to keep pushing forward. I took a piece of cardboard and I jammed it in the screen for my gas gauge. I jammed it in the screen on the bike on my gas gauge so I wouldn't have anxiety knowing how much gas or how little gas I had. Got back on the bike, started down, and the road followed this river. I found out later it was called the Salmon River. Beautiful country. Not what I expected in California at all. I'm following this road. I haven't seen a soul for an hour now. So that's back the way I came. Look at that river. It's fucking beautiful. So I'm hoping over that mountain there is a coast and a gas station and self-service. Because I got none of that. It's been a crazy but beautiful ride. It's sketchy because there's sand all over the road and those corners you gotta go super slow. But wow. The country out here, it's crazy. It's just beautiful. Well, wish me luck. Or a car, anything. Not even a house. Following the road down, the road down. by the river for probably, I don't know, another hour. Still nobody, hadn't seen anybody. And then I came out onto, finally at the bottom, I came out onto a double lane road. The road I was on was a single lane, hadn't been repaired in years, so now I'm on a double lane road. So I turn onto the double lane road, and it seems like, okay, maybe I'm out of the mountains, I'm kind of coming into more of a populated area. Still hadn't seen another car or anything, hadn't seen anybody, not a house, and I decided I need to take a leak. So I pulled off onto the right, onto the shoulder, and so the road's going like this, and then on this side of the road, it's just like a ridge that comes down. It's all treed. I think there are arbutus trees maybe, and then on this side there's the river. So the forest comes down almost to the road, so I walk into the trees. I start taking a leak, and then all of a sudden, just up the ridge on my right, so I'm facing this way, the road's here, the ridge comes down, I'm just in the trees, like right up here. All of a sudden I'm taking a leak, and all of a sudden, crack! The loudest crack, like it's if someone took a baseball bat to the trunk of a tree, and as hard as they could, even, it was so loud, went crack! Right away, I was like I knew what it was. Hairs up on the back of my neck, I yelled out, "Fuck off!" because I was like in shock, and as soon as I yelled out, "Fuck off," it went crack! Crack! Like so loud. It was incredible. I knew what it was, and something if I had looked up, I would have seen it. Whatever, well, I know what it was. And at that moment, I don't know if I said it or if something said it, but I heard a voice in my head that said, "Don't look up." Now it was pretty, I don't know if it was me just talking to myself, but it was pretty like, it was enough for me to not look up. Anyway, so I didn't even do my pants up. I might have been still peeing. Ran back to my bike. I didn't even put my helmet on. It's hooked up onto the back seat. Jumped on my bike and I was gone. This is where it gets weird again. About 5 minutes later, I pulled out onto my right to gather my composure. I was shaking and I was crying because I knew what it was. I knew what it was. And I look up. Right in front of me, I'll throw in the picture, you guys can see what I saw. The exit to Bluff Creek. Like, what the fuck? So I got lost, had this experience, and ended up at the exit to Bluff Creek. And if you guys are Sasquatch people, you'll know why that matters. But Bluff Creek is where the Patterson-Gimlin film was filmed in the 60s, 67, 62, I don't know the exact date. But that's where the famous footage of Patty was shot. Like 5 minutes from where I had my experience. So I was blown away. Tried to gather my composure. I was pretty much in shock. Helmet back on, and I drove, and I finally made it somewhere. I checked my fuel. I was on E, so I was about to run out. I came into this little town, and yeah, it was like Sasquatch this, Sasquatch that. There was like totem poles at the gas station. I filled up with gas and continued my way through Eureka. It was a pretty cool drive. Pretty cool drive. And I finally made it down to the coast that night, into Eureka. I was still like foggy from the whole thing that happened. And then, that was when there was a bunch of earthquakes happening that past week, and then there was a couple earthquakes that night in Eureka, and I was ready to leave my bike, jump on a plane, and head home because I'm paranoid of earthquakes. So that was quite an experience. So people can say Bigfoot isn't real, but I know what I've experienced, and I know Sasquatch is real. I've talked to people. I'm a tattoo artist. I have clients that are outdoors people or First Nations people. I've heard stories. I know they're real. And we're actually out. The Harrison area is a hotspot for a lot of the activity. And John Green, who wrote this, actually lived in Harrison Hot Springs. But what do I think Sasquatch is? I used to think Sasquatch was like a great ape, but I no longer think that. And you guys can think this is crazy or whacked out, but I think it's funny that anybody can look up in the sky at night and see the universe, see how vast it is, or just look at nature and see some of the stuff that goes on in nature. Look at an octopus and how it camouflages itself. Yet what people are afraid to believe, yet people won't believe in Sasquatch when there's so much evidence. There's DNA, there's hair, there's tracks, countless stories, there's video, audio recordings. Because people have been too brainwashed, and it starts at such a young age in the public school system of what is put into books. But the thing is like history changes. We find out new discoveries all the time, and I don't think the books catch up, or people are just too scared to open their bubble of what they think life is really about. But life is more than what you can touch or what you can see. There's more to it. So Sasquatch to me is an interdimensional being. I believe it can come through portals. I believe it can cloak. I believe it has the ability to speak to you telepathically. I don't know if it's spiritual being or anything like that. I don't know. But it's real. It's a phenomenon that's real. And I've experienced it.